podcast inspired by our favorite quote, self-advocacy is BS. It empowers neurodivergent folks to say no to what doesn't work for them and yes to what does. Brought to you by Umbrella US, the ND23 Project, and hosted by me, Genie V, this podcast is your self-advocacy sidekick. Whether you're a neurodivergent self-advocate, a caregiver, an ally, or curious about advocacy in general, this podcast is for you. You get no more of this, if I can do it, so can you narrative. There's none of that, if you have money, you deserve care, BS here. Episodes feature captivating conversations, interviews, and expert advice on self-advocacy with a focus on community care. We know that self-advocacy only works when there is access to the support and care we need. And what does that mean? Without community, self-advocacy goes nowhere. Join the movement toward true self-advocacy where we know that without community support, self-advocacy is BS. Subscribe now to ND and NO, and let's journey from overwhelmed and undervalued to saying no to what holds us back and yes to what helps us move forward. Hi, everyone. I am Genie V, host and sort of just guide on the ND and NO podcast. Very great day today because I get to share conversation with someone who is very special to me and very important to me. So our guest today is Crystal Nelson, and Crystal is going to be sharing with us some of the subjects we've not yet talked about here on ND and NO. Before I bring Crystal up, I do want to say I am a transgender woman. I am currently dressed in a drape style, halter style top. My shoulders are bare. I have auburn hair. I'm currently sitting in the living room of my home, and you can kind of see some of my pieces of furniture behind me. I do have very fancy rainbow colored earrings that are kind of shiny like minnows. And one of the reasons why I'm wearing these earrings is because my guest today was wearing a pair of these one time when I saw her, and I had to have a pair. So let me welcome Crystal into the podcast.
Hi.
Hi there. You want to give us a little bit of information about you?
I am a cisgender woman. I go by she, her, and I am white, blonde hair. I have I don't know what, this is the worst color for me, but it's like a lavender top with a little bit of vanilla. And I have a bare wall, unfortunately, and a little bookshelf holding my my crystal light at the moment. So that's me.
So before we get into sort of the body and the conversation for the subject matter, I want to ask, how did you finally decide to pick the glass project you're working on right now?
It actually got the most votes online. And so everybody was picking, and I had accidentally taken out, I think it was the space one or something I meant to do.
Yeah.
And when I started, everybody had the most votes and they were like, that will be the prettiest colors. And I had to agree. I mean, there's some beautiful colors. It's a sunset scene in the desert. Yeah. And so, which the desert, the high desert is one of my favorite places. So
Crystal does stained glass. And this project really reminded me of Out at the Gloss Mountains.
Oh, you're right.
And when I saw what you were doing, it was like, oh my God, this is going to be gorgeous, because I love driving through the Gloss Mountains and just seeing the mesas and when the sun is just right. So I really wanted the space one, but when I saw what you were doing, it's like, this is going to be gorgeous. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So we do talk about neurodivergence, and I'm curious, what was the first moment that you had of thinking, I'm not like other people?
I think this was either 4th or 5th grade. I had I have an identical twin sister who's mirror image than me. And so it's almost like having a mirror and that mirror acting completely different than you because you have different personalities,
Right.
but everybody expects you to be the same. And so I kind of knew we were different then. But the first thing that really captures my mind is fourth or fifth grade. I had a really rough teacher. She expected a lot of me. And I always on my grade report cards always had blessing to be in class or good, but talks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so this teacher put me in a cubicle. And I don't know if you know the 90s. It was a cardboard box they put on the table on your desk. And she actually put the desk in the corner. So I couldn't talk to anybody. I fidgeted a lot. And when other than having a lot of shame that I was put in the corner, because it was definitely a lot of shame, it was very obvious to me that I talked too much and that I couldn't sit still. And I mean, I was obviously showing it, I was exhibiting signs of ADHD in girls, which are very high functioning. I was a straight A student through high school. I went to space camp every year, all that. But that was the moment, was fourth or fifth grade I'll just say fifth grade, that I realized that my behavior wasn't the same as others,
Mm-hmm.
and that people saw it negatively.
Yeah.
So
So we've kind of talked about you and your sister. Um, but you had also told me in the course of that scientists would begin studying you
yes.
and your sister.
Yes. And so when you were identical twin in the 80s and 90s, nature versus nurture was very big.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were starting to get into DNA and all this other stuff. And so, I mean, it was obvious that our doctor, had given our names out and stuff like this, but we also were very small. So when we were 5, we were wearing 2T, two toddler. And
Wow.
so we are 4'11". I have a brother who is well over 6 foot and a sister who is almost 6 foot. We have the same parents. And then there's me and my twin. So they were looking at nature versus nurture with us. And so that was, they had discussed growth hormone and experimental stuff like that at the time that thank goodness my parents did not agree to,
Right.
because it was very experimental, but there were definitely psychological things, especially with the school. Like I remember being pulled out as a twin and given tests and stuff like that with my twin that were just mostly psychological tests, but they were giving it was studies.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That could not have been easy.
no.
I mean, what I'm hearing is you have this teacher who is pulling you out, isolating you, keeping you from behaving what is naturally to you.
Mhm.
But then you have these individuals coming in and pulling you and your sister out, saying, basically, you're not normal, so we're going to study you. That can't be easy.
And we were precocious children. I'm not saying we were easy. We traded spaces in kindergarten every other day. Like we had different teachers. And so we would go, I mean, we were very precocious. And I don't think my parents knew what to do with us. And I was the only one to break a window. Like I scratched my name across a car, the whole broadside of a Volvo one time when I was 5, because I don't know why. Like I obviously was showing signs of something. And I also very much wanted to be good. I remember that, like the shame of that moment in the cubicle was kind of indicative of any kind of a lot of attention I was getting was negative, trying to fix my behavior.
Yeah.
And I learned to adapt. I learned, I thank goodness I was an outdoor kid, because I learned to adapt of being able to sit still and be social, but be appropriate. And then just kind of after school, being outside and releasing all the pent up energy. So I did learn. And my sister and I had different neurodivergence, and I don't want to really get into hers, but she had her own struggles too. And I think people would go, we were the same. And that was the biggest obstacle of being identical twin, is that everybody thought we were the same, that her way of learning was my way of learning. Her way of feeling was my way of feeling. And so it was kind of a lonely way. I also found in the early years that I was melancholy is a word for it. Like I have very bubbly and not, but I'm empathic. And so with that is some melancholy. And so I noticed that was different than most people around me. And
Angela, I'm going to need to edit right here. Give me just a second.
What is that noise?
Kobe has taken the squeaky bone to the bedroom, and he's squeaking it in the bedroom. So, okay, back to professionalism. So what has been your journey of discovery? You said that, basically it wasn't diagnosed when you were a kid. It was just sort of treated by behavioral, control. So what's been your journey of discovery?
I found my journey of discovery is I found outlets that were high tech. So I was an ICU nurse for a long time. And so I have had 2 jobs where I've sat at a desk, and they've lasted less than 6 months. So I learned very early that is something I cannot do. Like my partners in life throughout my whole life will say, she is never sitting down. She's always got something going. And that is coping, but also how I've learned to deal with the negative effect of not being able to sit. And one of my daughters has this terrible, like she has the same thing I do. And I was not great with her growing up. I had high expectations of her because I was like, I figured out how to do it. Why can't you?
Right.
And but even things like little fidgets, like it's something I didn't realize, the fidget spinners were really big back then, a couple years ago, but I realized at that moment, I have fidgets throughout my life. They weren't fidget spinners. They were pencils. I'm very oral. Like I would always be chomping on something.
Yeah.
My erasers were non-existent because I had to be doing something. I'm very tactile. And so as a child, it was constant trying to find the tactile of things.
Right.
So I could ground myself and to learn in a place that was not real great for to learn in places that were not meant for me. They were meant for people who could sit and spew out. And all this while I was achieving A's. I was achieving I had to be perfect.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are even now discovering,
Right.
and you are even now, coming to understand different forms or experiences of being neurodivergent. So, I mean, what has been what's been your path of just accepting all of these new revelations?
Well, I mean, before you get into the path, I don't think I was accepting at all of
Mhm,
myself. I
mhm,
had to be perfect all the way through my 30s. And that perfectionism, unfortunately, when I was young, came out in, I was getting A's. I was on honor roll. I got a full ride to college, but I was washing my hands 40, 50 times a day. So I was not coping.
right.
I was also anorexic for a significant amount of time. And so those are coming out. Those are the only things I'm going to control. I had to control every part of me
Yeah.
for me to be accepted. And so some of those OCD tendencies, because I was not dealing with things, I was coping,
Yeah.
were coming out. And so I limped along through having children and getting married and all all that,
Mhm.
for about 35 years. And I was married for 20 years. And that marriage had come to an end probably half of the time, probably at that 10 years, but we stayed together. And and I was doing okay, but I was also working 60 hours a week in a
Yeah.
high demand job. And that was to cope with some neurodivergence and to cope with the fact that I had to be a good person. So I
Yeah.
was helping people in my job. I was good at my job. I was finding ways of coping with things I weren't really good at, which was the home life,
Mhm.
and immersing myself in that. I could run all day, run, and my brain could run all day and be exhausted at night. And that's how I was dealing with it. And
Yeah.
then, so still had to be kind of the perfect person, going to church on Sunday, um, the very much the good girl, right?
Mhm.
And then got divorced, and got married soon after, and to a man that ended up not being. He was physically, emotionally abusive, and gaslighting. Like, if you could have, at the end of 2 years, if you would have told me the sky was yellow, I would have said the sky is yellow. Like, and in that moment, so I've gotten PTSD, CPTSD out of that, unfortunately. And I also have, so I have Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, and that caused a anoxic brain injury, when they could not resuscitate me, and after an anaphylaxis shock. And so I was out of work. Like, so I had to learn how to talk again. My balance was really bad at the beginning of the anoxic brain injury. So you have this neurodivergent brain that's
Mhm.
trying to make sense of this new brain
Right.
that's very damaged. And I didn't know if at the first couple days if I was laying down or standing up. Like, it
Right.
was that sensory was off. My awareness of my body was off. If I closed my eyes, I just felt floating. There
Yeah.
was no, and so coping in those early days, because I couldn't make sense of it all. And also my dealing with huge grief and shame in a marriage that I should not have been in. He left me in the hospital in a strange city. Like, I had to find my way home. Like, when I finally got to go home, he left me. He went home and went, and and I had to find. So it was just things like I couldn't trust the person I was with.
Yeah.
So I was also trying to protect myself.
Mhm.
Um, no, and when I came back to the home, there were high expectations of being normal,
Yeah.
of fixing dinner, of making the house a home, of being the wife that he had had that I was able to keep together before. But
Mhm.
now with the anoxic brain injury, I wasn't even able to talk. It was kind of word salad.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't coping then. It
Yeah.
was trying to find as much tactile. So I'd go outside with mast cell activation. I had such a inflammation response. It was negative 20 degrees, and I would go out and sleep because it was a tactile thing. So my
So,
body was going to what it needed. But
gotcha. Very quickly, you've used a couple of terms, and I want to basically give an understanding of that for people.
Mhm.
What is an anoxic brain injury?
So anoxic is different than traumatic. Is what people hear, TBI, right?
Hmm.
Anoxic is a global injury from no oxygen.
Okay.
Traumatic is a hit or something like that where you might have two sides that are affected,
Hmm.
but anoxic is your whole brain was without oxygen.
And this was the result of an anaphylactic reaction.
Right. And
Okay.
so my lungs filled with swelling, and they couldn't intubate me. And so this was uh, I ended up being out of work for 16 months.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like, my whole sense of self, the whole way I was coping, running all day is now gone.
Yeah.
And having to deal with that, like, also my identity was being
Hmm.
an ICU nurse. Um, and so my brain was trying to tell me what it needed, but it was also so damaged that could so I was going to biofeedback, I was going to occupational therapy, I was going to physical therapy.
Right.
Um, and like if you would go do the dishes,
Hmm.
I could go do the dishes. I couldn't I did the dishes, but I didn't see the rest of the what needed to be done, like wipe down the sink. Because, like, if it was a couple critical thinking skills, I
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Right.
And so that's when I started some stained glass because it was my OT was like, you need to get a hobby that has several steps.
Yeah.
And so I started that, right?
Yeah.
And um and that was well after like my biofeedback. That was after I had left my husband. So, I was not doing too well. I was not coping. I was in a marriage. What I found in this, and I know I'm talking a whole lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. I
Okay.
didn't notice.
When what I found was that your environment, when you have neurodivergence, whether a noxic brain injury, coping with ADHD or whatever, if you have a stressful home life and if you're not safe in that home life, you will not get better.
Yeah.
Or I didn't get better. That's what
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
say.
Absolutely.
I got to a certain point of where I knew if my feet were touching the ground that I was standing up. I
Hmm.
could get to a point where I could talk in a couple of sentences and less word salad, but that was it. It wasn't until after I left that and my it became I mean, I left like um my husband started to choke me
Mm.
out of rage. And anybody who's in the medical profession who knows what that means is within a year, you are all but guaranteed to die by their hands. It's almost 100%. And so I knew as a nurse, I mean, I loved him. He was my husband. And I didn't want to, but I had to leave. And so what I found was my brain exponentially got better immediately after I left.
Wow.
I still have problems. Like I have racing thoughts. And this is where I don't know if the CPTSD or the anoxic brain injury, emotional liability is up and down. If I am social like today, I'm going to be down tomorrow.
Yeah.
My brain gets tired quickly. At night, emotional stuff is off. Like, because especially, it's been almost 4 years from the injury. 2 years, the first 2 years, emotionally, I could do about half a day.
Yeah.
And, or I just start crying and not be able to handle the world around me.
Right.
And yeah. And so therapy, biofeedback, all that stuff was very good for me.
We touched on the anoxic brain injury, but you also mentioned mast cell activation. Could you help me understand that a little bit further?
So do you remember the bubble kids?
Yes.
Okay. So basically that's what it was. They didn't know what it was. It's people who are allergic to everything. Okay. And I have certain triggers. Everybody has this with mast cell has different triggers and they change. Yeah. Mine probably started with alpha-gal, which is a tick-borne disease, because I have allergies to meat, and it probably went to mast cell activation syndrome. Okay. There is some sense of genetics. I have a niece who has it as well and stuff like that. So, but what it is that say you're stung by a bee and you're allergic to it. You take your EpiPen and you're fine. Take some Benadryl and it wears off. Well, with mast cell, it's like your body's just going to go insane with mast cells. It's going to dump all these cascades of anaphylaxis that are going to keep going and keep going. And also, you can have I've been dealing with this the last 3 weeks where I've had micro allergies. Dogs, cats, like just being around them. And it's feeling like a bucket in my body. Right. And I could be driving down the road and I get, I'm allergic. I'm a little bit allergic to cedar and that bucket is full. And so it will tip over. My body reacts. Yeah. And within about 3 minutes, I have no airway. Mine goes straight to my lungs and upper airway. Like it's right here. And so, like so much so that my esophagus has stricture in it from the last exposure that I had. And so that is, I've learned that my life will be different. And I've had to learn how to cope with that and how to have the life I want around it. Because I don't want a small life.
Right. Just for a bit of transparent and real world experience, I got to see this right up close and personal. Crystal came by my house, and I have 3 dogs and an antique love seat, which has a down cushion. Now I've since replaced most of the down with other material. So yeah, we were talking. I mean, we're just going on doing our thing, and you're doing your thing, which is you talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I love it. I love that about our friendship is that you talk. I get to listen. And then all of a sudden things changed. Can you describe what you experienced in that change?
What first happens is anxiety, because I feel my body almost going on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be that good girl. I want to be social. I want to have my life. And so I try to ignore it. And then I get asthma. It starts with a little bit of asthma. And this is the slow response.
Right.
And then I have to take Benadryl to maybe counteract it.
Right.
And we had to stop what we were doing and
Mm-hmm.
stop our visit, and I had to leave your house.
Yeah.
And we went to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that is part of the, this is not going to stop my life. I'm going to have a big life. What can we do?
Right.
Because I obviously something in your house is I'm allergic to. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
your couch. And
Very likely.
And so what can I do to salvage this? And I've always wanted, I try to be that way, because
Right.
it's very easy in this to say, well, I'm going to be shut in my home.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that. And so, hey, let's go to, and you never know. The place we went to, a restaurant, they could have sprayed bleach or something in it, and then it would be over, because I'm allergic to bleach. But
right.
or bathroom spray is a big one, like
Mm-hmm.
that has polyethylene glycol, and so it very much could keep going, and then I have anaphylactic shock, and then but what can I do in that situation to continue my social life is my goal,
So basically, I took Crystal out. We went to dinner, and then I got her liquored up on Benadryl, and we continued to have a great evening. So,
and for a while, my coping skill was disassociation.
Yes.
While sitting on the couch, it was like I was gone, and you could, Jeannie, you could tell a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like I'll be there, and then I won't, and because it is traumatic. But
and I want to ask this as your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Were you ashamed
of
being in that moment of just having to be, having the atmosphere, the energy change?
Yes. I'm a people pleaser.
Right.
I'm an empath. So I can
Mm-hmm.
feel the letdown. Like I can feel the energy change.
Yeah.
And no one likes to U-turn. I've had a partner that has woken up in the middle of the night and I'm having severe anaphylaxis. No one wants that in the middle of the night.
Right.
Like, and so me being a people pleaser, yes, the shame is there.
Yeah.
I have to work through it. And the reason how I worked through it and this is different than it was 4 years ago.
Okay.
Is that I pick the people that are not going to bring me any shame.
Yeah.
That are loving and good people. That is something that I have I've said goodbye to people who are wishy-washy on that, or gaslight, or emotionally coercive. Not even saying abusive. I'm saying emotionally coercive. There's no place in my heart and in my life. I can love them from afar, but I am surrounded by people in this day and age, and that was a conscious decision I had to make for my brain injury and for my neurodivergence, is that I'll be surrounded by only good people.
Yeah.
That love me and want the best for me.
Yeah.
And can say, I'm disappointed, but we're going to do this again. It wasn't your fault,
Yeah. There would be at no point would I ever want you to feel like that I was disappointed,
Right.
because I understand that. And you made it very clear to me, and I understood this as an amazing communication from you, and that was, I need to do something because this thing has changed. The circumstances, the environment,
Yeah.
what is happening here is different because I can't
Right.
be in this moment because of this thing that's happening.
And yeah.
But then we find out you don't have what you need to change the situation. And all of a sudden it's like, huh?
People will kill me when they hear this.
No, I mean, it was a very simple, there was a small change that happened in your life prior to you coming here that led to you not having what you needed.
Yeah.
And so we're like, let's go get you some Benadryl because you need that right now.
And something as simple as changing a purse out.
Yeah.
Where I don't have my emergency meds can change my life forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could end my life. And so the neurodivergence of being OCD, that's something I have to be very OCD about.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't like living. I'm a hiker. I'm a swimmer. And I have to have this pouch hooked to me at all times.
Right.
And, but yeah, I didn't have it.
So I do want to make one clarification, and I want to unpack this a little bit because some people have taken issue with this. When you talk about OCD, within the neurodivergent community, I mean, obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive behaviors are sometimes different.
Right.
So I wanted to ask, are these, is this a disorder or is this just a behavior that you have to do? I mean, you talked about washing your hands. That we understand.
I have had OCD behaviors my whole life. Okay. Manifest in different ways.
Okay.
And so that when it's a little bit different when you're perceived, if you don't, so some people say locking the door at night. If you're perceived, you're in danger if you don't lock the door. So you go and check the door 20 times, and that's your OCD behavior. Right. It's still perceived you might be in danger. Well, what happens when it's not a perceived danger? It is a very real danger that has affected my life. It has affected my brain. It has affected every aspect of it. I've had to learn how to talk again. Right. So there's my brain pathway of being OCD behavior about being prepared for that moment. Right. Is very real. I don't know if that's a behavior or a or whatever you said the other one was.
But, well, the difference between a disorder in that it disrupts or interferes with behavior that would be deemed to be typical or normal in your life, compared to just something that you do a lot and it's become almost more habitual. I'm hearing you talk about this is a disorder because it interrupts your life.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't do these things, your life is interrupted. And the doing of these things has to be a part of you creating the way forward. So I'm hearing it as an OCD, an obsessive compulsive disorder. We're not just talking about somebody who does something out of a habit. We're talking about a disruption of life to the point that you have to do these things.
Right. And I want a healthy brain. That's what I have for the last 2.5, 3 years, really tried, 4 years really after the injury, is I knew my life was going to have to be different from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had to make significant decisions that would hurt people that were better for me.
Yeah.
I had to learn boundaries. I had to learn that I can be a good person and still let down somebody.
Yeah.
And that was part of being part of coping with my neurodivergence.
Mm-hmm.
That I have such a streamline from being a people pleaser, from being, and then I also had, so I was getting out of my relationship. I literally walked out with my dog, and I had a brain that was basically a live wire with CPTSD, and from severe abuse,
Right.
to not being safe. Like the biggest part of domestic abuse and when people die statistically is when they try to leave or they have left.
Yeah.
And so and I had tried to leave before. And so the severe shame in that, and I had to really think about ways of lowering the live wire in my head.
Yeah.
So when you leave, because neurodivergence, CPTSD is neurodivergence. You are now neurodivergent. And so the first couple months, what I did was I paced, and I was so shameful of pacing. And when I'm saying pacing, I was ruining the carpets in my flooring.
Wow.
Like that much pacing. And so my therapist and I was like, I feel so, I was like, I feel so bad. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. And she was like, it's your brain's way of organizing chaos.
Yeah.
Your brain is complete chaos right now. And that is the only thing it can. And so I urge people to pace.
Yeah.
Stuff that's left to right, like reading, is order.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to fish. And my therapist was like, get a fishing pole. And she was like, you're just going to cast and reel, cast and reel, cast. And so I would do that for months.
Yeah.
And what it was doing was bringing a brain that was so injured, that was up here, just like, like all the time,
Right.
and was bringing down the temperature of that brain. And so I encourage people that some of these behaviors of that you find yourself doing to cope are not bad. Like, I think we've been told that some of them are bad.
Yeah.
Like I had a perception that pacing, that repetitive behavior would be bad.
Right.
And no, it kept me from behaviors that were really bad. That so when you get out of an abusive situation, when you're in an abusive situation, there is a dopamine and oxytocin rush, and your body is expecting that when you leave. And you will find ways to get that are not good for you. Either going back to the abusive partner or setting yourself up in bad situations, which is what I did. And I had no boundaries. So being with new people was not a good idea.
Right.
Not at all. And but I want to encourage people that processing and sitting still and doing something repetitive is good. It's not hurting anybody. And it's free. It's a piece of paper. Like, it's folded into a million pieces, tear it apart and throw it on the floor. I would rip things because of the tactile. It would give me the tactile thing I needed for my brain. I would rip a whole notebook full of paper, and it would give me the hearing I needed. And so if something feels good in that moment, do it. We are so shameful of, oh my gosh, this CPTSD, I can't show any signs. I'm not going to say you're not going to get better, but your brain needs certain things.
Yeah.
So
You said that you want to live a big life, that you want to, you don't want to be trapped in this. But what has been your experience of being this big life person that maybe others want to treat delicately?
that's a hard one, Jeannie. That we have a mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a conversation about perpetual abuse and
Mm-hmm.
how I exude someone who is okay with abuse.
Right.
And I had to really look at that and look at boundaries because I wanted to make everybody happy. So, but the question is, that I feel sad when someone's like that. I think they don't see me.
Right.
I'm in a time of my life where I have to give myself grace too. I see both sides of it. I'm a strong fucking woman and I've gotten through a lot. I also don't want to be a strong fucking woman. So if you want to give me if you want to baby me a little, fine. If you don't think I can do things on my own, fine. Like it is, but know that I can. It makes me sad because I think people think that.
Yeah.
They want to baby me a little bit, and I'm okay with the babying at this moment in my life. But baby me a little bit, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna have a big life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're gonna go and do the things that are on the list. I used to go, I can't do that. If I had a bucket list or say an event pops up on Facebook. I can't do that. I have kids and I used to be that way. I don't have the money for it, all that. I'll do that when I'm older or whatever. I don't get that. I don't get that luxury with my Mast Cell. I don't. And so I think it's like I was just hospitalized for 8 days in January. And it took 3 months for me to pretty much be where I was. And I'm still not. But the reality is that the big life, I have to make it now.
Yeah.
And if there are people in my life that are like, whoa, Crystal, you have to have a small life.
Right.
Because it has to be protected. And to me, that's never been living.
Yeah.
If I'm not open to loving someone, if I'm not opening to loving my community, and if I'm not open to going and doing the things that I want to do and see, it's not living. It's a little bit easier for me because I don't get the luxury of aging. So I think it's easier for me than most to have a bigger life.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the luxury of time. If you see that as delicate, fuck you. Like, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't see it as delicate. I see it as being a badass bitch and taking the time I have. And please cuddle me and hug me, because it's scary and hard, and so there's some delicate part of it. But like,
Right.
I love graceful, beautiful, tender places too. That is
Yeah.
part of loving this big life that I have, being open to it. Having a big life is being loved by others and showing love. Because my history very much could be, I'm going to keep everybody at a distance
Yeah.
and never, I'm going to use people, and I'm going to I'm going to be in this box, and that's not living to me. It could be for others. I'm not
Right.
saying, there are people who are coping with much different things than I am. And if that's what they need to do. And the first 3 months of me leaving my relationship, I was in a box.
Yeah.
I had to be. My brain was on fire.
Absolutely.
So,
Um, that one got me.
sorry I said the F word, but like,
No, that's fine. Um, time
mm-hmm,
has come up very recently between you and I.
mm-hmm,
And so the recognition of you living your life, this is, you're very much you're in the moment kind of person to me.
mm-hmm.
And what is good in the moment is good in the moment. And it's one of the things I absolutely adore about you. And being able to be in that group of people who does want to empower you to live that big life, but also being one of those people who's been lucky enough to have the tender moments with you has been a joy for me.
Thank you.
Who are your supporters? Who are the ones who are out there, not just saying, hey, Crystal, you go do you.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the ones who are out there making it possible for you to live that big life, as well as who is there for your comfort and holding and snuggling and all those fun things?
um, so my mom, with all her problems, like, she is 80 years old. She has not, she's been in and out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And she has come to what I need right now. Something that did not come up is when I left my husband, if something happened at work where I hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I did not mean to. I would never. And it was the lowest part of my life. I was also, I did have some suicidal ideal that for a while. And so my mom took the reins when I needed her to.
Yeah.
Without my mom and her support, I would not be here. And there are flaws in this,
Mm-hmm.
flaws, but she has been there when I have needed it. And I'm so thankful. Um, my Aunt Mary, who has passed on,
Mm-hmm.
and my father, who has passed on, are my angels. And I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But the ones that are here, so my mom is a big. I couldn't be here. I would not be here without her.
Absolutely.
Um, I have a partner who supports everything I do, and I did not want to be a partner. I didn't. it kind of fell in my lap, and I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. But like, I'm like, oh gosh. And so we've been together for about a year. And there's been, if I say I want to do this, he's like, when and where, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until January when he saw, like, you can tell someone, I don't have much time.
Yeah.
And then you could see them in the hospital in the ICU, and they get it.
Yeah.
And Genie, you're a big part of where I get tender moments, where I get understanding, where I get support.
Yeah.
I get that I've changed my kids are big supporters of me. They also we tend to have a lot of, we have big grown up relationships, and they've had to be there for me more than I've been there for them. And I know what that means. And I'm struggling with that. And so, some of these are not healthy. Like, my kids should not be there in that way for me. They just have, and I have to say that my ex-husband, Chris, who was my first husband, when I hurt somebody at my work, I fell into his arms. And I would not be here if he did not watch over me for the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so I have people who have a lot of, I mean, it is not like lovey-dovey. That is my ex-husband. We have we just saw each other like 2 weeks ago. We had a child that was moving back in with him, and I was helping him move furniture so this kid could get in there. And we reminded each other, this is why we were divorced, please let me go home, but those are the people in my life. I also have people that I've met in like dating, that type thing, that have, I was learning boundaries while dating, while being deciding what my life was going to be like in the last like 2 years. And so boundaries, I had zero. That's how I ended up in a marriage that was terrible for me. That's how I had moved away from my children in that marriage.
Right.
I'm a good mom, and I did that, but I had zero boundaries. And so I had to learn what boundaries were. I had to learn how to exercise those, and that's a lot harder than you think.
Yeah.
And everybody should have boundaries. Everybody. Like, I don't have much time, and even the boundaries that I have made have been, I'm sorry, you are a good person and you're nice to be with, but I don't have the time. You know what I mean? And so boundaries are even saying goodbye to things that are good.
Yeah.
Because if you have a million things that are going on that are good, it will wear you down. And my biggest thing in the last 2 years is peace.
Yeah.
If it does not bring me peace, and it does not calm my brain, and if your energy is not calming to me, I'm out. Peace. Out. Peace. It's done.
Yeah.
And like, I've met so many lovely people in the last 2 years that have come into my life for a reason. And I think neurodivergent people who are, I read rooms really well. I have an autistic child. She does not. Like, for her, boundaries are even more important.
Right.
If this is a thing that I don't want to do, I can't read the room well, but I know that this action I don't want to do is more important for her.
Yeah.
And I wished when she was young, I had known that. I
Right.
wish I could have been able to be a better source for her.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I have people in my life that love and adore me. I also have old friends, um, as long as well as new ones who have
Mm.
known me through high school. They knew my second ex-husband. They, uh, and so it's been kind of hard for them because um, they had relationships with him.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to know that your friend is an abuser, you
Mm.
know.
Mhm.
Um, and they have stuck by me and have loved me, even amongst the hard, because that's their friend.
Mhm.
And some of them have said goodbye to them, and that's their story to tell. But um, it could have been easier for them to go, "You're too hard at this moment.
Yeah.
You're a live wire," because emotional regularity is not there.
Right. Yeah.
The first year and a half wasn't, and I'm still like uh your monitor said so much grace. Oh my gosh. Like I couldn't have done it without people. And I implore people who are neurodivergent and are going, I just need to stay in my home and not meet people, and I don't know how to do this for you. I
Yeah.
know how it worked for me, but there are good people out there. And the only way to practice boundaries is to practice boundaries.
Yeah.
And there are wonderful, good, accepting people out there. Community matters.
Yeah.
Like and I'm a very social person. So but I'm also an introvert as
Mhm.
well. And so that's why I have this like social, and then I will just crash.
Right.
And having people surround you um, that understand that is key.
Yeah.
Also, what is key is vocabulary. When we don't know something exists, we are isolated.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine having PTSD symptoms and not know what it is.
Right.
Once it has a voice, once it has a name, it's a little less under the rug, right?
Mhm.
It's more in the light.
Yeah.
You can research it. You can go, oh my God, I have this on a forum. And people go, oh my gosh, I have all these tools for you, like
Yeah.
you can use. And so I think education is key.
Mhm.
Um, to be curious in your own brain. My brain is word salad most of the time these days, unless I'm doing something repetitive or I'm doing something like stained glass that has steps.
Yeah.
It's freaking Swiss cheese. I can't memorize anything. I used to
Right.
have an excellent memory.
Mhm.
After the brain injury, I have no. A couple of years ago, I did a New Year's resolution that every month I was going to memorize a poem or a
Mhm.
song. I would memorize it in a day and be able to repeat it. The next day, I knew 0 words.
Right.
And so I've come to the conclusion that that's not coming back. So how do I deal with it? Well, how I deal with it is community
Mhm.
and being open about it. And things fester under dark spaces when things aren't talked about.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much. Um, I think you're amazing.
yeah,
And
you're amazing.
I am so grateful to have you as my friend, to have you be a part of my circle
Mhm.
of of people that I'm connected to. And I appreciate you so much for being here today and sharing your journey and some beautiful things with us. I cannot wait to see the glass project you're working on.
Thank you.
And even though I still don't want to go camping with you, I still want to talk to you about going out to the astronomy thing
Mhm.
this fall. But Crystal, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This.
Thank you.
Absolutely. AJ, you want to take us out?
Thanks for listening to ND and NO, a neurodiversity podcast for self-advocates and allies. A monthly discussion coming to you every fourth Thursday, 11:30 a.m. U.S. Central Time. If you or someone you know would like to be on the pod, be sure to let us know by filling out the Share Your Experience form at umbrellaus.org. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other Umbrella US events. And finally, if you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To donate to Umbrella US and learn all the latest from us, visit us at umbrellaus.org and follow on your favorite social media platforms. Thanks again. See you next time.